All right, let's dive deep into Brazil. We're going to figure out what it takes to actually live there, as a digital nomad or an expat, not just the tourist stuff.
We're talking visas, the real cost of living, the best cities to settle in, even some of those cultural quirks you'll want to be ready for.
And to make sure we're giving you the most up-to-date info, we've got all the latest resources right here. Everything from visa rules to what daily life is really like.
So you can be confident that you're getting the inside scoop.
Okay, so first things first, visas. You can't just waltz into Brazil and stay forever.
Nope, definitely not. But good news, Brazil just introduced a new digital nomad visa, perfect for, well, digital nomads like you.
Sweet. So tell me more about this golden ticket.
Well, it basically lets you live and work in Brazil legally for a whole year. There are some requirements, of course.
Like what?
You need to prove you can support yourself financially.
Makes sense. How much are we talking?
You'll need to show you earn at least $1,500 a month or have $18,000 in savings.
So that beachside office might be in your future, but you got to be able to pay for it.
Exactly. But hey, if you're not ready to commit to a whole year just yet, the tourist visa is a great way to test the waters.
Oh, yeah. The good old tourist visa.
Right. You can stay for 90 days, and you can even stretch it to 180 days if you need a bit more time. Gives you plenty of time to soak up that Brazilian vibe and see if it's the right fit.
It's like a little trial run.
Pretty much. And there are other visa options too, depending on what you have in mind for the long term. Student visas, work visas, even retirement visas if you're thinking way ahead.
So once you've got the whole visa thing figured out, let's talk money. How much will it actually cost to live in Brazil? Is it really that cheap paradise everyone talks about?
Well, while Brazil does have a lot of affordable options, it's important to be realistic. It all depends on where you choose to live and the kind of lifestyle you're after.
So like city versus countryside, fancy restaurants versus street food.
Exactly. As a single expat, you could be looking at anywhere between, let's say, $600 to $2,500 a month.
Wow, that's quite a range.
It is, but that's why it's so helpful to compare different cities, see what each one offers. For instance, you've got Foz do Iguaçu.
Oh, near Iguazu Falls.
That's the one. It's actually known for being really budget-friendly.
Seriously. That's awesome. Not only you get to see those incredible waterfalls, but you can actually afford to live there too.
Yep, you can explore the rainforests, maybe even volunteer with some local animal rescue organizations, all without breaking the bank.
Sounds amazing.
Now, on the flip side, if you're picturing yourself sipping cocktails on a pristine beach near Sao Paulo, well, Santos might be more your style.
Oh, Santos. I've heard of that.
But be prepared to pay a bit more for that beachfront lifestyle. It's a popular spot, so the prices reflect that.
So it's all about trade-offs, right? What you prioritize, what you're willing to spend.
Exactly. Each city has its own unique charm and its own price tag.
Okay, so speaking of cities, let's talk about some of the most popular spots for expats and digital nomads. Brazil's huge.
It is incredibly diverse, too. So many different vibes, different landscapes.
I know, it's hard to even know where to start. Luckily, we've got this awesome city-by-city breakdown from our sources. We can really tailor this to what you're looking for.
Great idea. What are you thinking?
Well, how about we start with the classic, Rio de Janeiro? I mean, it's iconic, beaches, vibrant culture, carnival.
Rio's definitely got that wow factor. No doubt about it.
But we should probably also talk about, the realities of living there, cost of living, safety concerns, that sort of thing.
You're absolutely right. It's important to be aware of those aspects, too. Rio's an amazing experience, but it does require a bit more planning and precaution.
All right, so what about Florianopolis? I've heard it's become a real haven for digital nomads.
It has beautiful beaches, laid-back lifestyle, and a really active community of remote workers.
Sounds idyllic.
It's not just a pretty place, though. Florianopolis has really developed a whole ecosystem for digital nomads. You've got co-working spaces designed for collaboration, events specifically for remote workers.
Wow, they've really thought of everything.
There are even dedicated Facebook groups where you can connect with other nomads and expats.
It's like a built-in support system.
Pretty much.
But I imagine it gets pretty crowded with tourists, especially during peak season.
That's true. If you prefer a quieter experience, or maybe you're on a tighter budget, Belo Horizonte might be more your speed.
Belo Horizonte, help me.
It's known for being really affordable with super welcoming locals, and the cultural scene is amazing, especially the food.
Oh, the food. I've heard great things about Belo Horizonte's culinary scene.
It's a foodie's paradise for sure. Traditional Brazilian dishes, innovative fusion cuisine, you name it.
Sounds delicious.
Just be prepared to brush up on your Portuguese. English isn't as widely spoken there, especially compared to the more touristy spots.
That's good to know. Now, if we're looking for something totally unique, how about Curitiba?
Ah, Curitiba. Now that's a city that's doing things right.
What do you mean?
They're all about eco-friendly initiatives, efficient public transportation, that kind of thing. It's got a very European feel to it.
Really? Interesting. I've heard it can be a bit cooler there than other parts of Brazil, though.
That's true. If you're dreaming of year-round tropical heat, Curitiba might not be the best
Uh,
choice. But if you like a change of seasons and you appreciate a city that's really forward-thinking, Curitiba is definitely worth checking out.
okay, I'll keep that in mind. Now, for the ultimate adventure, there's always Manaus, the gateway to the Amazon rainforest.
Ah, Manaus. That's a whole different world.
Right. Imagine being in the heart of the Amazon. Incredible wildlife, a completely different way of life.
It's definitely not for everyone. Manaus has that raw energy of the Amazon, which can be intense. You've got the heat, the humidity, and you need to be extra careful when you're exploring the rainforest.
So many incredible options. It's almost overwhelming. But before we get too carried away with all these amazing cities, let's talk about actually working remotely in Brazil. You keep saying digital nomad, but is the internet really reliable enough? Can you actually nomad it effectively?
That's a crucial question, especially if your livelihood depends on a stable internet connection. The good news is Brazil's internet infrastructure has improved a lot, especially in the bigger cities.
So I wouldn't have to worry about, like, my Zoom calls dropping out in the middle of a presentation.
Probably not. In cities like Sao Paulo, Rio, Florianopolis, you'll find tons of co-working spaces with super fast internet, really reliable connections.
Those co-working spaces sound great. A good way to meet people, too.
Absolutely. They often cater specifically to digital nomads, so you'll have everything you need. Private meeting rooms, ergonomic workstations, some even have social events.
Sounds perfect.
But as you go to smaller towns or more remote areas, the internet can get a little unpredictable.
Okay, so location is key.
It really is. If your work needs a strong internet connection all the time, you've got to factor that in when you're choosing where to live.
And mobile data is important, too, right?
Definitely. If you're planning to travel around Brazil, you'll want a good mobile data plan. There are a bunch of different providers, each with their own coverage areas and plans.
So it's worth doing your homework on that.
For sure. Research is key. Oh, and there are also some legal things to think about when it comes to remote work in Brazil.
Oh, legal stuff. Sounds a bit scary.
It's not too complicated, really, but if you're working for a company outside of Brazil, you might need to register as a freelancer for tax purposes.
Okay, that makes sense.
There are also specific rules about intellectual property and data protection, just things to be aware of.
So it's best to be prepared and maybe get some professional advice if I need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Talking to a lawyer or an accountant who specializes in international remote work can save you a lot of headaches down the line. They can walk you through everything.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to some of the softer aspects of living in Brazil, like the culture and safety considerations.
Right. It's one thing to visit Brazil, but actually living there means immersing yourself in a whole new culture, a new way of life.
So besides learning some killer samba moves,
Yeah.
what else should I know about adapting to the Brazilian lifestyle?
Well, first and foremost, try to learn at least some basic Portuguese.
Yeah, I figured that was coming.
It's not just about being polite. It's about really connecting with people, understanding the culture on a deeper level.
I've always wanted to learn Portuguese. It's such a beautiful language.
It really is, and Brazilians really appreciate it when you try to speak their language. It shows respect, and it opens up so many doors. Plus, it'll make your life a lot easier, even just for everyday things like ordering food or asking for directions.
No more pointing at menus and hoping for the best.
Exactly. There are some great resources out there for learning Portuguese, like online platforms and language exchange apps. And once you're in Brazil, just immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. Watch local TV, listen to Brazilian music, chat with the locals.
Got it. Immersion is key. Okay, now let's talk about safety. I hear a lot of mixed things about Brazil, so it's good to be realistic about that.
Definitely. It's like any country, there are challenges. You need to be aware of potential risks, especially in big cities.
Should I be, like, constantly looking over my shoulder?
No, not necessarily. It's more about being smart and using common sense. Pay attention to your surroundings, especially in crowded areas or at night.
Basic travel safety tips.
Right. Don't flash expensive jewelry or electronics. Try not to walk alone in dark areas, that kind of thing.
Makes sense.
Oh, and here's a tip a lot of seasoned travelers swear by. Connect with the local expat communities.
That's a good idea.
They're a gold mine of information. They can give you the inside scoop on staying safe, recommend trustworthy local guides, that sort of thing.
And it's probably nice to have that sense of community, especially when you're new to a country.
Absolutely. It's like a built-in support system. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out to your embassy or consulate if you need help. They're there to assist their citizens abroad.
So it's all about being informed, being prepared, and knowing where to turn for help if you need it.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially when you're in a new environment. All right, so we've talked about some of the more practical stuff, like staying safe and getting around. But now, let's dive into something a bit more fun: Brazilian culture. The heart and soul of the country.
Yes, this is what I've been waiting for. I'm fascinated by Brazilian culture, the music, the food, the festivals. It just seems so vibrant.
It really is. Brazilians have this incredible zest for life, They embrace joy, connection, celebration. It's pretty inspiring.
So where do we even begin? Brazil has such a rich and diverse cultural heritage.
Well, we could start with the music. It's like the heartbeat of Brazil. You've got the pulsating rhythms of samba, the soulful melodies of bossa nova.
I've always loved bossa nova. It's so smooth and relaxing.
It is. Perfect for those warm summer evenings. And then you've got samba, which is pure energy and passion. It's impossible not to tap your feet when you hear it.
I can only imagine.
Experiencing live music is a must in Brazil. Whether it's a street performance in Rio, a samba school in Sao Paulo, or a forró band in the Northeast, you'll be blown away by the talent.
I bet. But it's not just about listening, right? Brazilians love to dance.
Oh, absolutely. Dancing is woven into the fabric of Brazilian culture. It's a way to express yourself, connect with others, just let loose and have fun.
I'd love to experience that.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly a skilled dancer.
Don't worry about that. Brazilians are so welcoming. They'll be happy to show you a few moves.
Maybe I'll even take a samba class.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a fun way to learn about the culture and get your body moving. And speaking of immersive experiences, let's talk about Brazilian food.
Oh, yes, the food. I've heard so much about Brazilian barbecue, feijoada, all those delicious tropical fruits.
Get ready for a culinary adventure. Brazilian food is a fusion of flavors, reflecting all the different cultural influences throughout history. You've got the succulent grilled meats of churrasco, the hearty bean stew feijoada. There's something for everyone.
And what about those acai bowls? I see them all over social media.
Acai. It's a Brazilian superfood that's become really popular worldwide. It's this berry that's packed with antioxidants, and it's often blended into smoothies or topped with granola and fruit. Delicious and healthy.
Okay, now I'm officially hungry. Is there anything I should know about, like, dining etiquette in Brazil?
Brazilians are generally pretty relaxed and informal, but there are a few customs to keep in mind. Like, it's considered rude to be late for a meal.
Okay, that's good to know.
And it's polite to wait for the host to start eating before you dig in.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's always good to be respectful of local customs. So, beyond music and food, what are some other cultural experiences I shouldn't miss?
Well, Brazil has a vibrant festival culture. You've got the world-famous carnival, of course, but there are also tons of local religious festivals and cultural events happening year-round.
Carnival is definitely on my bucket list. The energy, the costumes, the parades. It seems incredible.
It's truly an unforgettable experience, but there are so many other festivals worth exploring too, like Festa Junina in June, which is a traditional festival celebrating rural life. Think bonfires, folk dancing, and amazing food.
Sounds fun.
And then there are the religious festivals. Brazil has a strong Catholic heritage, so those are a big part of life in many communities.
Are there any specific ones you recommend?
One of the most famous is the Círio de Nazaré procession in Belém. It attracts millions of pilgrims every year. It's a really powerful experience.
Wow, I'll have to look into that. It seems like Brazil is a country that really embraces its traditions.
It does, and it's that blend of tradition and modernity, that vibrancy and diversity that makes Brazil so captivating.
So how can I, as an expat or a digital nomad, really immerse myself in the culture? How can I make the most of my experience?
Be open to new things.
Yeah.
Embrace the local way of life. Connect with people. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, try new things, and really engage with the community.
So like maybe instead of always going to those touristy restaurants, I should try to find some of the hidden gems where the locals go.
Exactly. Venture off the beaten path. Explore those authentic neighborhoods. That's where you'll really get a feel for the heart and soul of Brazil.
And maybe instead of taking a taxi everywhere, I should try using public transportation.
That's a great way to experience daily life like a local. You'll get to see the city from a different perspective, and you might even strike up some conversations with people.
And I'm definitely going to make an effort to learn Portuguese. I think that's key to really connecting with the culture.
You're absolutely right. Learning the language opens up so many doors. You'll be able to communicate more deeply, understand the nuances of the culture, and really appreciate the beauty of the language itself.
So it's all about embracing the adventure, being curious, and really connecting with the people and the place.
Exactly. It's about allowing yourself to be transformed by the experience of living in Brazil.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about all the amazing cultural experiences, but now let's run it back down to earth for a minute. Let's talk about the practicalities of actually living in Brazil as an expat or a digital nomad.
Good point. We've covered the highlights, but there's also the day-to-day stuff to think about. Finding housing, healthcare, managing your money.
Right, all the essential stuff. So where should we start?
Let's start with finding a place to call home in Brazil, figuring out the whole housing situation.
Okay, housing. What are my options? Where do I even start looking?
Well, there are several online platforms that are really popular in Brazil for finding rentals. Websites like Quin Andar and Zach Moves are good places to start.
And what about those Facebook groups we talked about earlier? Can those be helpful for finding housing too?
Oh yeah, for sure. Expat and digital nomad communities on Facebook are great resources. People post about apartments, they share recommendations for real estate agents. You can get a lot of insights into different neighborhoods.
So it's about using those online resources and tapping into those local networks.
Exactly. And once you've found a few potential places, it's good to be aware of the rental process in Brazil. It's generally pretty similar to other countries, but there are a few key differences.
Like what?
For instance, in Brazil, it's pretty common to have to provide a guarantor. That's someone who basically vouches for you financially, make sure you'll pay your rent.
A guarantor.
Huh.
It's not something we usually do where I'm from.
It's a pretty standard practice in Brazil, and it can be a bit tricky for expats and digital nomads, especially if you don't have any local connections.
I can imagine.
But some landlords are willing to be flexible, especially if you can prove you have a steady income or offer a larger security deposit. It's worth negotiating and seeing what your options are.
Got it. So what happens once I've found a place?
Well, you'll probably need to set up utilities like electricity, water, and internet.
I bet that could be a challenge, especially if you don't speak Portuguese.
It can be a bit daunting, but there are resources to help. Many utility companies have English-speaking customer service reps. And there are also some online platforms that can guide you through the process.
Okay, good to know. So now let's talk healthcare. What's the healthcare system like in Brazil?
Brazil has universal healthcare, which means everyone has access to free healthcare, regardless of their income. It's called SUS. But the quality of care can vary depending on where you are and which facility you go to.
So should I consider getting private health insurance as well?
A lot of expats and digital nomads choose to do that just to supplement the public system. Private insurance can give you access to a wider range of hospitals and clinics. You usually have shorter wait times, and the quality of care is generally higher.
That makes sense. So how do I go about finding private health insurance in Brazil?
There are several international insurance companies that offer plans specifically for expats. Just do your research, compare different plans, and choose one that fits your needs and budget.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so we've covered housing and healthcare. Now let's talk about money. What do I need to know about banking and managing my finances in Brazil?
Well, the banking system in Brazil is pretty modern. You can easily open a bank account even as an expat or digital nomad. And most banks have online banking and mobile apps, so it's super convenient.
Perfect. And what about using my credit cards and debit cards from back home? Will those work in Brazil?
Most major credit cards are accepted, especially in tourist areas and bigger cities. But it's always a good idea to double-check with your bank about foreign transaction fees and currency conversion rates.
Right. Those fees can really add up.
They can. And it's always smart to have some local currency on hand, just in case. For smaller purchases, places that don't take cards, that kind of thing.
So should I exchange currency at the airport, or is there a better option?
You can exchange money at the airport, but you'll usually get a better exchange rate at a bank or a casa de cambio.
A casa de cambio, what's that?
It's basically a currency exchange bureau. They're all over the place. And of course, you can always withdraw local currency from ATMs. Those are everywhere in Brazil.
Got it. So what about the overall cost of living? We talked about how it varies from city to city, but are there any other specific costs I should factor in?
Yeah, good point. Transportation can be a big one, especially if you're relying on taxis or ride-sharing services. Public transportation is usually pretty affordable, but it can get crowded and it's not always the most efficient, especially in the larger cities.
I can imagine.
So it's a good idea to weigh your options and see what makes the most sense for you. And if you're planning to travel around Brazil, don't forget to factor in the cost of flights or long-distance buses.
Right, those can add up quickly. And what about entertainment? Movies, concerts, going out? How much should I budget for that kind of stuff?
It really depends on your lifestyle and what you like to do. Brazil has a ton of entertainment options, from free outdoor activities like hiking and going to the beach to cultural events, live music, and fancy restaurants.
So it's all about finding a balance between enjoying those experiences and sticking to a budget.
Exactly. And don't forget about things like visa renewal fees or any other administrative costs that come with living in Brazil.
Oh yeah, those are important too. It seems like there are a lot of things to keep track of when it comes to managing your finances in Brazil.
There are, but with a little planning, some good research, and some smart money management, you can definitely create a comfortable and enjoyable life for yourself in Brazil.
Welcome back to the show. We've covered so much ground already, from visas and costs to the amazing culture and food Brazil has to offer. But now I want to get into something a bit more personal. What's it actually like to make that move, to trade in the familiar for the excitement of Brazil?
It really is a journey, you know? It goes beyond just the practical stuff. We can give you all the tips in the world, but living abroad is ultimately about self-discovery, figuring out who you are in a whole new context.
So let's talk about that. What are some of the challenges people face when they first get to Brazil? Even if they've done their research, there must be some culture shock.
Oh, definitely. Even with the best preparation, there are always going to be moments where things feel different, maybe even a little frustrating. The language barrier, for one, can be a real hurdle, even if you've been studying Portuguese.
Right. It's one thing to practice phrases, but it's totally different when you're trying to have real conversations.
Exactly. And then there are those everyday cultural differences that can catch you off guard. The pace of life, the social customs, even the way people communicate can be subtly different from what you're used to.
So how do you deal with those challenges? How do you start to feel more comfortable, more at home in Brazil?
I think patience is key, and flexibility, and a good sense of humor. Remember, you're on a learning curve. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, those mistakes are often the best learning opportunities.
It's all about embracing the journey, right?
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of connecting with other expats and digital nomads. They've been through it, they get it, and they can offer incredible support and advice. Plus, it's just nice to have that sense of community, especially when you're far from home.
Those online groups and forums we talked about could be really helpful for that, can't they?
Absolutely. It's a great way to find answers to your questions, connect with people who are going through similar experiences, even just to vent sometimes.
It's like a virtual support group.
Pretty much. And of course, immersing yourself in the local culture is so important. We talked about learning Portuguese, exploring different neighborhoods, attending festivals. All those things help you connect with the Brazilian way of life on a deeper level.
Right. It's about going beyond just being a tourist. So we've talked about the challenges, but what about the rewards? What are some of the things that make living in Brazil so special?
For a lot of people, it's the sense of adventure and discovery. Brazil is such a vast and diverse country. There's always something new to explore. The Amazon rainforest, the beaches of Rio, the colonial towns of Minas Gerais, it's like a whole new world waiting to be discovered.
It's like having endless possibilities right at your doorstep.
Exactly. And then there's the warmth and welcoming nature of the Brazilian people. They have a genuine joy for life, and they love sharing their culture with others.
I've always heard that Brazilians are incredibly friendly and hospitable.
They really are. They'll go out of their way to make you feel welcome, whether it's inviting you over for a barbecue, teaching you some Portuguese slang, or just striking up a conversation with you on the street.
It's those personal connections that really make a place feel like home, don't they?
Absolutely. And for many expats and digital nomads, living in Brazil is a truly transformative experience. It challenges your perspectives, pushes you outside your comfort zone, and opens you up to new ways of thinking and being.
It's like a journey of self-discovery, but on a global scale.
Exactly. That's the beauty of living abroad. It's not just about changing your location. It's about changing your outlook on life, embracing new possibilities.
So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about taking the plunge and moving to Brazil?
I'd say do your research, of course, but don't get bogged down in the details. Trust your instincts, follow your heart, and be open to the adventure. Brazil is a country that rewards those who are willing to take a leap of faith and embrace the unknown.
It's about saying yes to the adventure,
Right.
even if it feels a little scary.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this. There's a whole community of expats and digital nomads out there ready to welcome you with open arms.
It's like joining a global family, united by that shared love of adventure and exploration.
And who knows, maybe Brazil will become your new home, the place where you discover your true potential and build a life that's both fulfilling and meaningful.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored so much about Brazil, from the practical aspects to the cultural nuances and personal experiences.
We've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully we've given you a good sense of what it's really like to live in this vibrant and captivating country.
If you're feeling inspired to start your own Brazilian adventure, we encourage you to do it. Take that leap of faith and see where it leads you. You might just surprise yourself.
And remember, you can always revisit this deep dive for guidance and inspiration along the way. We're here to support you on your journey.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Brazil. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living life to the fullest.